Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining me again. We're picking up with Pinocchio. We're starting on chapter 26. I hope everybody's comfortable. I hope everybody has their beverage. And let's get started. Chapter 26. Pinocchio and his schoolmates go to the seashore to see the terrible shark. Next day, Pinocchio went to school. Imagine what those mischievous boys did when they saw a puppet coming to their school. It seemed as if their laughter would never come to an end. One took his cap away, another pulled his jacket behind. One of the boys tried to make a big mustache under his nose with ink, and another again tried to tie strings to his hands and feet to make him dance. Pinocchio pretended not to notice them at first, but at last he lost his patience. And turning to his worst teasers, he told them menacingly, "Take care, boys. I didn't come here to be your clown. I respect others, and I want to be respected." "Good for you, Peacock. You talk like a book," howled the rogues, laughing more than ever. And one of them, more impertinent than the others, put out his hand to seize the puppet's nose. But he was not quick enough, for Pinocchio kicked his shins under the table. "Ow! Ow! What hard feet!" cried the boy, rubbing the bruises on his aching shins. "And what elbows! They're even harder than his feet!" exclaimed another, who had received a blow in the stomach for his rude jokes. After a few kicks and blows, Pinocchio won the respect and liking of the whole school, and they all made friends with him. Even the master praised him, because he was attentive, studious, and intelligent, first to arrive at school and the last to leave when school was over. His only fault was that he made too many friends. Some of these friends were well known as good-for-nothings, unwilling to study. The master warned him daily, and the good fairy never failed to repeat it. "Be careful, Pinocchio. Those bad friends of yours will end up making you lose your love for our books. I hope they won't lead you into any great trouble." "Oh, there's no danger," answered the puppet, shrugging his shoulders and touching his forehead with his finger, as if to say, "There's too much good sense here inside." Now it happened one day, as he was on his way to school, that he met some of these friends, who asked him, "Have you heard the great news?" "No." "They say that, not far away from here, there's a shark in the sea as big as a mountain." "You don't say so. I wonder if it's the same shark that was there on the night when my poor father was drowned." "We're going to the beach to see it. Will you come too?" "Not I. I'm going to school." "Why should you go to school? You can go to school tomorrow. One lesson more or less won't change us. We'll still remain the same blockheads." "But what will the master say?" "He can say what he likes. He is paid to find fault all day long." "And my mother?" "Oh, mothers never find out anything," answered those wicked boys. "I know what I'll do," said Pinocchio. "I have certain reasons for seeing the shark, but I'll go after school." "You poor blockhead," said one of them. "Do you think a fish of that size will wait for you? When he's tired of being in one place, he'll go to another, and that'll be that." "How long does it take to go to the beach?" asked the puppet. "We can be there and back in an hour." "Well, come on then. Whoever runs fastest is the best chap," cried Pinocchio. At this starting sign, all the boys ran across the fields, with their books and slates under their arms. Pinocchio led them, for he ran as if he had wings on his feet. From time to time he turned to poke fun at his friends, who were a long way behind him, and when he saw them panting, covered with dust, and with their tongues hanging, he laughed heartily. The poor boy did not guess at that moment what terrors and dreadful disasters were awaiting him. Chapter 27. Great battle between Pinocchio and his friends, during which one of them is wounded, and Pinocchio is arrested. When he arrived at the shore, Pinocchio looked at the sea, but he saw no shark. The sea was as smooth as a great mirror. "Well, where's the shark?" he asked, turning to his friends. "Perhaps he has gone to breakfast," said one of them, laughing. "Or perhaps he went to have a nap," said another, laughing still louder. Their silly answers and stupid laughter told Pinocchio that it was all a joke and that he had believed a lie. He was very angry, and he said indignantly, "May I know what your idea was in telling me that story about the shark?" "It was great fun, to be sure," the rogues answered in chorus. "Well, what was it?" "We wanted you to stay away from school and come with us. Aren't you ashamed to be so proper and industrious every day? Aren't you ashamed to study so hard?" "And why should you mind how hard I study?" "We mind it because you make us look so small in the master's eyes." "Why?" "Because boys who study always make those who don't small by comparison, and we don't like it. We have some pride, too." "What can I do, then, to please you?" "You must do as we do, and hate the school and the lessons and the master, our three great enemies." "Then we'll have nothing to do with you." "And suppose I choose to keep on studying?" "Then we'll have nothing to do with you, and we'll take the very first chance to get even with you." "Really, you make me laugh," said the puppet, shaking his head. "Take care, Pinocchio," said one of the big boys, facing him. "Don't think you can lord it over us. Don't think you can crow over us. If you aren't afraid of us, we're not afraid of you. Remember, you're alone, and we are 7. "7, like the 7 deadly sins," said Pinocchio, laughing. "Did you hear that? He insulted us. He has called us the 7 deadly sins." "Pinocchio, say you're sorry, or it will be worse for you." "Cuckoo!" said the puppet, putting his outstretched fingers to his nose. "Pinocchio, you'll be sorry." "Cuckoo!" "We'll beat you like a donkey." "Cuckoo!" "You'll go home with a broken nose." "Cuckoo!" "I'll give you cuckoo!" shouted the most daring of the boys. "Take this for a start and keep it for supper." With this he gave him a blow to the head. But it was, as the saying goes, give and take. For the puppet, as was to be expected, returned the blow, and in a moment the fight became general and furious. Pinocchio was alone, but he defended himself like a hero. His hard wooden feet kept his enemies at a respectful distance. Wherever those feet touched, they left a black mark that would not easily be forgotten. The bad boys, angry because they could not get near Pinocchio, began to use other weapons. They unstrapped their school bags and began to throw their books, primers and grammars, dictionaries, geography, and other school books. But the puppet had sharp eyes and dodged so quickly that the books all flew over his head into the sea. What do you suppose the fish did? Thinking those books were something to eat, they came in shoals, but hardly had they tasted a page or two, or a cover page, when they spat it out again, with a grimace that seemed to say, "We are used to much better food than this." The fight was growing more furious when suddenly a big crab that had come out of the water and climbed onto the beach called loudly, in a voice like a trumpet with a cold, "Stop it, you rascals! These schoolboy fights always end badly. Something bad will surely happen." Poor crab! He might as well have been preaching to the wind. Pinocchio was no better than the rest, and said rudely to him, "Shut up, you detestable crab! Take rather some lozenges for the cold in your throat. Go to bed and take some medicine." Just then the boys, who had thrown away all their own books, saw Pinocchio's school bag lying on the ground, and in less time than it takes to tell it, they took possession of it. Among the books were a large one bound in strong board, with leather covers, back, and corners. It was a treatise on arithmetic. You can imagine for yourselves how heavy and large it must have been. One of these rascals seized the volume and threw it at Pinocchio's head with all the force he could muster. But instead of hitting the puppet, it struck one of his own friends on the head. The child turned as white as a sheet and shouted, "Oh, Mamma, help me! I am dying!" and fell his full length on the sand. At that, the frightened boys ran away, and in a few moments they were out of sight. But Pinocchio stayed there, and although from sorrow and fright he was more dead than alive, he wet his handkerchief in the sea and put it on the poor boy's temples, weeping bitterly, calling him by name, and saying, "Eugene, poor Eugene, open your eyes and look at me. Why don't you answer? I didn't hurt you. Believe me, it wasn't I. Open your eyes, Eugene. If you keep them shut, I shall die too. Alas, alas, what shall I do? How shall I have the courage to go back to my mother? What will become of me? Where can I fly to hide myself? Oh, how many thousand times better would it have been if I had gone to school? Why did I listen to bad friends? They are my ruin. The master told me, and my mother said, 'Beware of evil companions.' But I am obstinate and a fool. I listen to them, and then do as I please. And afterwards I have to suffer for it. It has always been so, ever since I was born. I never had a really good quarter of an hour in my life. Oh dear, what will become of me?" Pinocchio was still crying, moaning, and striking his head, and calling Eugene, when suddenly he heard approaching footsteps. He turned and saw 2 policemen. "What are you doing there on the ground?" they asked the puppet. "I'm helping my schoolmate." "What's wrong with him?" "Pardon me. Is anything wrong with him?" "I think so." "No doubt about it," said one of the policemen, bending over Eugene and looking at him closely. "This boy is wounded on the temple. Who did it?" "Not I," stammered Pinocchio, frightened. "If it wasn't you, who was it then?" "Not I," repeated Pinocchio. "What was he wounded with?" "With this book." The puppet picked up the treatise on arithmetic, bound in board and leather, and showed it to the policeman. "And whose book is this?" "Mine." "That's enough. There's no more to say. Get up and come with us." "Come along." "But I am innocent." "Come along." Before leaving, the policeman called some fishermen who were rowing near the shore, and said to them, "We are leaving this wounded boy with you. Take him home and look after him. We shall be back tomorrow." Then they turned to Pinocchio, who had to walk between them, and they said as a military command, "Forward!" and "Step lively, or it will be much the worse for you." Without waiting for them to repeat it, the puppet set out on the path that led to the village. The poor puppet did not know where his head was, but thought he was dreaming a dreadful dream. He was almost beside himself. He saw his double, his legs trembled, his tongue stuck to the roof of his mouth so that he could not speak. Yet in the midst of his awe and bewilderment, there was one thought that pierced his tormented heart like a thorn. The thought that he would have to pass under the good fairy's windows between the 2 policemen. He would have rather have died. They had just entered the village when the wind blew off Pinocchio's cap and carried it some 10 yards away. "Do you mind if I go and get my cap?" Pinocchio asked the policeman. "Yes, go, but hurry." The puppet picked up his cap, but instead of putting it on his head, he took it between his teeth and began running toward the sea. Thinking it would be hard to catch him, the policeman sent a big mastiff after him that had won the first prizes in all the dog races. Pinocchio ran, but the dog ran faster. People all came to the windows or ran down the street to see the end of that fierce race. But they could not see it, for Pinocchio and the dog raised so much dust on the street that in a few minutes nothing could be seen. That's the end of chapter 27. Thanks for joining me, everyone, and join me here tomorrow for more reading. Bye, guys.